He usurps the American ship of state and turns it into his own personal weapon. Because he's obsessed. He sees Moby Dick. That's all he sees. Moby Dick is the enemy. And let me get to one quote here before I forget. Okay. 177. This is how he describes Moby Dick. Bear with me here. All right. Captain Ahab. I have heard of Moby Dick, but it was not Moby Dick, but it was not Moby Dick that took off thy leg. This is on page 177, chapter 36. Who told thee that? Cried Ahab, then pausing. Aye, Starbuck. Aye, my hearties all around. It was Moby Dick that dismasted me. Moby Dick that brought me to this dead stump I stand on now. Aye, aye, he shouted with a terrific, loud animal sob, like that of a heart-stricken moose. Aye, aye, it was that accursed white whale that raised me, made a poor pegging lubber of me forever and a day. Then, tossing both arms, with measureless imprecations, he shouted out, Aye, aye, and I'll chase him round Good Hope, and round the Horn, and round the Norway Maelstrom, and round Perdition's flame before I give him up. And this is what you've shipped for, men, to chase the white whale in both sides of land and over all sides of earth, till he spouts black blood and rolls fin out. What say ye, men? Will you splice hands on it? Now I think you do look brave. In that one statement, that one description, he manipulates the American ship of state. He thinks he has to con the crew. He nails a gold doubloon to the mast and says the first man who sees Moby Dick gets that. Okay. But he totally usurps the authority vested in him. You know, I've said this is the American ship of state. Ahab is the president. I'll just make that distinction clear. And what we have is someone who's a president who is nuts, who is sailing off into crazy with the speed of a mountain lion. Okay? And he doesn't care. He doesn't care about his crew. He doesn't care about anyone. All he cares about is getting his victory over Moby Dick. Okay? Why is this book so relevant? Look at the history of America since the 1900s. All the things that this country has dealt with. Dare I even say 2001 with the 9/11 tragedy and how American foreign policy responded. That was a Moby Dick moment. And we've had Moby Dick moments over and over again where someone has usurped the authority of America to use it for his own personal well-being or gain or vision or madness. That's what Ahab is talking about what Melville is talking about through Ahab. That's why he's the false American Democrat. He comes to see himself as the Messiah. He's going to save America by taking on Moby Dick, the white whale. Because Moby Dick is now at the same level as God. And even beyond God. As a Democrat, and I'm using that term not in terms of political parties, but as a follower of democracy, Ahab is split in two. the scar shows. On one hand, he considers himself equal to everything above him. On the other, he considers everything below him beneath him, and there for his manipulation. Ahab is the great political manipulator. Then we have Ishmael. For Melville, Ishmael is the true Democrat. And I'm running out of time, and I've got so much to say. But I'll give you one quote, and this sums up Ishmael. Most famous opening line in American literature. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. When I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it's a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially when my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I count it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. This is my substitute for pistol and ball. What we find with Ishmael throughout the novel, he has a totally different view of democracy as Ahab. And he becomes the true Democrat. We even have a marriage between Ishmael and Queequeg, the Polynesian harpooner. They share a bed at night and become fast friends. And in that, Melville establishes the true meaning of democracy. And Ishmael verbalizes it. Okay. The structure. Okay. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to speed up. Didn't mean to get caught up there. The structure of this novel is incredible, to say the least. Okay. We have the dynamics. We have different chapter forms. We have relations of chapters. We have the voyage. And along the voyage we have 7 whale killings and 9 gams or ship meetings. And that provides the spine for this novel. The dynamics, we have 3. Ahab, probably the strongest one. We have Moby Dick, the white whale, who is just a whale, but with Ahab becomes something much bigger. Then we have Ishmael. But the funny thing about Ishmael that makes this such a modern novel is that first sentence of the book. Call me Ishmael. We have 2 Ishmaels in this novel. We have the narrator, Ishmael, who is an old man who tells us on the last page that he was the only one to survive. And now he's looking back and trying to figure all this out and put meaning to it. So he's telling the story of somebody else, young Ishmael, a character who goes through all this. It's like a concentric circle of narration, because we get all the narration of the first person narrator, and as soon as Ahab steps onto the quarterdeck, he becomes a third person narrator, because we get inside Ahab and we get inside Ahab's brain and mind. Beautiful the way it works. Okay. The chapter forms. Okay. Just to give you a sample, we have chapters, well, first off, we have prefatory material, extracts. All it is just definitions and quotes about whales for about 30 pages. Then the novel starts, and we have 135 chapters. 135. And then we have an epilogue. Okay, so that in itself is unusual for 1850 America. Take it a step further. The chapters are units of structure because they provide in and of themselves certain kinds of structure in what they relate. Okay. Then, and a lot of these chapters follow your typical novelistic approach of character development and plot progression. Okay. But that only lasts so long. And then we have Melville using two non-novelistic structural forms. The sermon and the dramatic form. And we have lots of sermons in this book. The best one is Father Mapple's sermon, but we have others. The dramatic form, we have chapters that are written like a playwright's script book. And he does it on purpose. Then we have chapters that are related to each other in various and sundry ways. Chapter sequences. You just read off a couple of these. Okay. Chapter sequences dealing with theme, what Melville's trying to get across. Sequences of structural similarity. In other words, chapters that are built the same way and act as bookends, like chapter 1 and the epilogue. We have chapter clusters. They're dominated by either ideas or images. We have chapters devoted to cetology. We have chapters devoted to the reality of whaling. Okay. We have chapters of opposites and similars. The most obvious form of chapter is the voyage. I'll wrap this up in here in just a second. The voyage is your typical journey motif. Initiation, separation, and return. Ishmael separates in chapter 1, gets initiated through 130 chapters, comes back in the epilogue when he says, I alone am returned to tell thee. Okay. So we have the journey, the voyage. As part of that, to structure that and to give it more spine, we have the whale killings. 7 whale killings. Only the first one and the third one are really dealt with in detail. And that's to get our attention and to help us understand the whale. But we have 7 whale killings that mean something, that show Ahab merging, shall we say, with Moby Dick. Then we have the gams. A gam is a ship meeting. We have 9 meetings between the Pequod and various ships, and each ship is different. And each ship is like a map of how bad Ahab is becoming. In the last ship, or the next to last ship, the captain has himself been, experienced Moby Dick and lost his arm. So he has a white ivory arm. And he says, I'm not messing with Moby Dick. All right? I'm done. You're kind of nuts. No, you don't need to be chasing after. Okay. The last captain, or the last ship, is the Rachel, who also had just experienced Moby Dick and the captain's son was missing. And he pleads with Ahab, he begs with Ahab to help him find the son. And Ahab says, no, I'm going after the white whale that did this. I'm not going to help you. And everybody is just stunned, because that's like the cardinal sin of the sea, to deny help to a fellow captain or a fellowship. All right. Now the language. I love this shot. I love that picture. All right. Wrap this up. The language is so energized and so diverse. We have entire chapters and passages that are expository, that relay information. We have chapters and incidences that are poetic. We have the idiomatic approach to language. What that means is it's told in the idiom of the characters. So we have characters talking in sailor talk throughout the novel and the way sailors talk. And then we have a fourth mode. It's a composite mode where he combines, yet again, all three of those to create something new. Then we have the symbolic mode. Yes, this book is full of symbolism. But the point that Melville is making with the symbolism is simply this. We make up the symbols. We make up the meanings. Okay? That's an important thing. We have that capacity. Reality is much different. Moby Dick is simply a white whale. Not the God of the universe, the force of evil, not everything that's wrong in the world in one shape, as Ahab claims. Basically, he's saying, be careful. Don't get so caught up in absolutes and blowing literally things out of proportion by imbuing meaning on every little thing. You're going to get thumped by the whale. Accept that. This is what Ishmael would say, and did say. Accept it. Roll with it. Move with it. Don't get hung up on it, like Ahab did, where he got hung up and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. All of the symbols are like that. And there are symbols, plenty of symbols. We can spend 2 weeks talking about that. But the bottom line is, he's saying, Melville is saying, yeah, you can make symbols, but don't get lost in them. It's almost like an anti-symbolic symbolic novel. Like a non-denial denial. Okay. All right. Give you an example. This is from chapter 37, the beginning sentence of chapter 37. I just wanted to touch on the poetry because he does this all the way through in every chapter. I leave a white and turgid wake, pale waters, paler cheeks, where'er I sail, the envious billows sidelong swell to whelm my track, let them but first I pass. That's Shakespearean. Iambic tetrameter. And then we have iambic pentameter. Then we go back to iambic tetrameter again, and Melville throws in an anapest at the end. Then we go back to iambic tetrameter again. Now, I won't go into all the details of meter, but what Melville has done and continues to do throughout the novel is take poetic language and transform it into exposition, into dialogue, so that you find this regular poetic meter all the way through all the lines of the novel. Man, was nuts. You can't do that. But he did. Okay. We'll bring it to a close now. How close am I? Okay, I'm going to close it off right now. Hit it just like I wanted to. Melville said, and it's in the book. Believe me, everything is in the book. But he says, or he has Ishmael say, to produce a mighty book, you must choose a mighty theme. What started out as an adventure story became a national epic. Just like the Iliad and the Odyssey were national epics for Greece, and the Aeneid was the national epic of Rome and Italy, Moby Dick is the national American epic. It's all about America. It defines who America is and wants to be, and it defines and criticizes who America's not. So, I'm going to end this really quick. I told you I'd get you out of here now by saying this. If you really want to understand America, and not just America in 1850, but America in 1990, America in 1964, America in 1945, America in 1950, America in 2001, America in 2016, America in 2021, read Moby Dick because it is all in there. This is our national treasure. All right? And I love the way Nathaniel Philbrick puts it. He says that in Moby Dick, Melville laid out a blueprint for America, a metaphysical blueprint for America. And that novel, Moby Dick, is just as relevant now, maybe even more so, than it was in 1850s America. Because of what it deals with, what it says, and what it harbors. And the neat thing about it, you can read Moby Dick twice and get two completely different versions. Okay? Because it's fluid. But it still is all about America and democracy for all. The message that Melville is sending through this cautionary Jeremiad, that's an old-time term for a long, despairing sermon, is that America has the potential to be what it claims it is, and to go beyond what it actually is and does. Because theory and practice for Melville are two completely different things. And for him, for Ishmael, the application of what we believe is more important than just what we believe. We can say we do one thing and go off and do something totally different. Moby Dick is all about that. And a white whale. Thank you all. Sorry about going on long, but I appreciate you bearing with me. I hope it made sense. Anybody have any questions? Thank you. Thank you. Sermon is concluded. We will now have an altar call.
Well, thank you for that. Any questions for Dr. Yates?
Who's going to read it? No. Yes, sir.
I ask you how long, if you were to sit down and do it right, how long would it take you?
To read it? I would, in all seriousness, I would say if I read something every day, it would probably take me about 3 weeks. If I'm really paying attention and not being distracted. But at the same time, it's hard to do that because there's so much on every page that you've got to go back and reread again. Did I just read that? You know, but I would say roughly about 3 weeks if you really put yourself to it.
How many times have you read it?
I've read it 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
That's all?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. And 4 times by page 1 to the last page. I've also listened to it, like I said, on audiobook. I've seen every film, beginning with 1926's The Sea Beast with John Barrymore, all the way through to the abysmal miniseries starring William Hurt. Not my favorite one. But, so, all in all, I'd say about 4. But with those false starts, I would throw those in, so that might make 5. So, any other questions? Bart, I know you got one.
Well, I don't know, I'm scatterbrained that I am. Right now, I'm thinking about it. I haven't read Moby Dick. My mother read it every word. She told me that more than once, and she said he even has a chapter devoted to the whale's eye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Either. In fact, the whale's eyes are on the side, and they're looking out that way.
Uh-huh. And it can't look forward.
But,
Yeah.
well, I'm thinking, for some reason, Ishmael, the narrator, I'm comparing it to the rhyme of the ancient mariner.
You bet.
The old guy stopping the guest to tell the tale.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that's a comparison or not.
It would be.
But I'm impressed with Melville's, sense of the biology of a whale.
Uh-huh.
But also his sense of geography, place names.
Mhm.
I wouldn't, someone trying to read it at a young age, you're not going to catch all the I'm not going to catch all the connections, but the geographical connection.
Well, and also, I didn't really touch on a lot of Melville's biography, but he went to sea and was a whaler.
Yeah.
He lived this. In fact, the conclusion, the 3-day chase, is based on a real event. And he was fortunate enough, while he was a seaman, a whaler, to meet the guy's son. But in 1820, there was a whale ship, the Essex, that was stove in by a sperm whale. And the survivors had to basically float around because of their own prejudices, because they didn't want to go to the island where the cannibals were. And so they went the opposite direction, and guess what? They became cannibals. So, but Melville was so moved by that. He was obsessed with it in a way. And he ended up meeting with Owen Chase and interviewing him and using a lot of his book that he had written to shape those 3 chapters. Because honestly, he wasn't sure how he wanted to end it. But his mind kept going back to the Essex. Because people would say, a sperm whale's not going to turn on his ship and bash it in. Wrong! It did, several times as a matter of fact. So,
Well, the money that was made from the whaling industry now built up New Bedford.
right.
And, this whaling fleet out of New Bedford. I mean, they're sailing, in all of the oceans, but
Yeah.
particularly within the Arctic Ocean as well.
Oh yeah. And so were ships from other countries, whalers from other countries.
Yeah.
But, and this is what I don't think a lot of people really realize, is that the whaling industry, up until 1850, was the #1 industry in this country. Whales provided oil for lamps, for perfume, for lubricants, for machines. It was the think of the auto industry on a ship. That's what whaling was all about. Kill as many whales as you can get, melt them down, strip them down, process them, which is a totally bizarre, almost sickening thing. But they did it, and they would come home, if they came home, with 400 kegs of whale oil. Have you ever watched Deadliest Catch? You know, they get all worked up over the crabs. Just take that and imagine it with whales. That's how bad, or not how bad, but how big that industry was. Until the Industrial Revolution. After 1850, the whaling industry dropped off to nothing.
You got the, I'm talking to you. You got the Drake's oil well in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
From 1859 or whatever it is. And then John D. Rockefeller and kerosene.
Oh, of course. And I wanted to dwell on it more than I did, and I apologize for that. But, you know, I was talking about the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Okay, this is 1850. 1861, what happens? We have the Civil War. But everything was showing up right then that led directly to the Civil War, and that's one of the messages that he was using with Ahab. He's saying this kind of leader is going to put us in a civil war. And he loved Abraham Lincoln. It's not that he was criticizing Lincoln. It was long before Lincoln came on the scene. But this mindset that we are the best, that we are God's chosen nation, that we are better than any other nation in the world, and everything is here for us.
Manifest destiny.
Yeah. That's what he was saying is wrong with America. America needed to be honest with itself and not try to be this big, dare I say the word, symbol of millennialism, of being the shining beacon on the hill established by God to provide democratic salvation to the heathen and the pagan. One of my favorite lines is after he's met Ishmael, or Queequeg. And everybody's, you know, kind of getting on Queequeg because he's worshiping this little idol, kind of like my Melville bust over there. And he says, it's better to sleep with an honest pagan than a drunken Christian. This is just such a great line. So, but, and again, there's that kind of humor all the way through. There is one chapter, I can't leave here without just throwing it out. I'm not trying to be offensive or anything. But I was shocked when I read it the first time, and I got even more shocked when I listened to it on audio. But there's a chapter called The Squeezing Hand, the Squeezing of the Hand. The whole chapter is devoted to one thing, and that is literally the ecstasy that these whalers get because they have to squeeze in their hands the sperm of the sperm whale. It becomes hallucinatory for them. It's almost like a drug. And it's so bleeding funny to see these grown men just, you know, along with everything else. So, if you ever do, and I hope you do, read Moby Dick, watch out for those moments of humor because it is a funny, funny book. Yeah.
I think what I'm going to do, my approach, I'm going to skip around. I'm going to read selected chapters about the topic of the chapter, and then I'm going to go back and read it.
Right. And see,
I may be wrong.
No. One of the funny things, this is assigned in high school across the country. And what people do, and I did it, we want to skip the cetology chapters because they're so boring. But I finally figured out what he was doing. Those cetology chapters are just as vital as anything else because what he's doing is taking biology and putting it up against myth-making. Does that make sense? Reality against belief or illusion. All the way through. That's just me. I hope that I've at least helped break down that hesitancy a little bit. It's not a huge book to be afraid of. No, I will say this. Whatever you think Moby Dick is, it's going to be something different every time you read it. And it is for me. The 4 times I've read it, it's become a different book because it just takes on this fluid reference point. In every line, every poetic line becomes something else. So whatever you think Moby Dick is as a novel, when you get into it and you finish it, you'll find that it's something you weren't expecting. And that's the beauty of it. Sorry. Anybody else have any questions?
I have an observation / kind of question. So
Sure.
on your language slide, I just noticed that under one of the modes, where it had the A through D, actually the acronym is EPIC. So I was wondering if you actually.
I didn't do that on purpose. I promise.
I just
Thank
noticed
you.
that and thought that was pretty cool. That had tied into.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And the picture I put on it was Moby Dick under the lifeboat or the whaling boat, because all this is under the surface. We're so used to reading a text, and all we think about is the literalness of the language. And Moby Dick is the one novel among 100 that says, no, you're not going to read me that way.
Maybe we need to come back now and show the movie on this screen.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. I like
You
it.
bet. I mean, personally, Gregory Peck's my favorite Ahab. I've watched John Barrymore, I watched William Hurt, I watched Patrick Stewart. Stewart wasn't bad, but Stewart wasn't Gregory Peck. But even with Peck, he's almost too nice. In my opinion, for them to do the book right on screen, they've got to get somebody who is so bonkers. And it's so obviously off the rails to harness that energy. Because it's Ahab, really, that pushes this book along. And I came across a quote, and it's so true. People complain about Moby Dick that it's boring. But if you're really paying attention, there's, like I said, there's so much energy into it, but you'll hit these parts that are slow. Then you pick it up again, then slow. And I'm sure Melville intended it this way. It's just like life on a whaling ship. You have these moments of fervent energy and these longer moments where nothing happens. And then it's all energy again. So you get that realistic rhythm all the way through. Anyway, thank you all.
And everybody, if you want to, check out his items down there on the table
Yes.
before you leave. And
Please do.
we'll see you next time. Our next Spotlight series is November the 1st.
Thank you all. I appreciate you.